Hey everyone, welcome to the Knights of Last Call. My name is Derek Melenda. What you're about to watch is a recent clip from a Daggerheart Livestream where we gave advice to first-time GMs who may need a little help with running Daggerheart. Enjoy. All right, so our third tip for people who are new to this is this idea of mastering GM moves and framing. Now, this advice, I'm not going to lie, this is advice that comes from many other really well-designed Powered by the Apocalypse style games, especially from Magpie and, of course, from Vincent Baker and Avery Alder and all the folks who have come before. So, GM moves is a bullshit term. It was made up by people from the Forge. Sorry, Baker, I love you, but it was made up by Vincent Baker to sound smart and clever. And honestly, it's a terrible name. There's a lot of things in PBTA language that I love. I love the mechanics, but a lot of the language is really bad. The fact of the matter is a GM move just means you're talking. It just means that you're doing something. The list that they give you in all these games is not prescriptive. It's descriptive. It means that it's not literally saying you have to do one of these 10 things and nothing else. It's saying, as the GM, when the players when it's your turn to do something, and that could mean because the players are looking at you. So if the players say, I look around the room, what do I see? And then you say, you see an ancient crypt, maybe once dedicated to a god of good or light, but it's been terribly defaced through years of occupation by foul creatures in the dark. The holy symbol that once may have adorned the altar has been broken and shattered, and ancient graffiti and filth cover the altar. Guess what? You just made a GM move. You're like, wait, I just made a GM move? Yeah, that was a GM move. I know, it's bullshit, right? GM moves are bullshit. Showing them what's happening. When the player says, hey, can I climb down that, when that player say, can I climb down that pit? And I go, yeah, do you have a rope? And they say, yeah. And I go, yeah, you can do it, no problem. Guess what? I just did the, ask them a cost, tell them the cost and ask, because I said, do you have a rope? Yes. Then you can do it. If you don't, well, then it's dangerous and maybe we have to make a roll. That is a GM move. It doesn't seem like a GM move, but it is. So GM moves are kind of bullshit. So for starters, don't get hung up on the term. Okay. It's a way to sort of think about doing what you're doing with intention. That I will agree to. Okay. It is about learning to game master with intention. Unlike some of the other games that you may have played, games that are powered by the apocalypse or inspired by Powered by the Apocalypse, as Daggerheart is, have principles and agendas. These are games that want you to be about something. The game asks you, in fact, dare I say, it demands that you make your game follow these principles and agendas. And Daggerheart very intelligently even allows these agendas and principles to change depending on your campaign frame. So as a result, it is your job to, what GM moves are a way of sort of getting you to think about is talking. And before you start making a move, before you start describing what you're doing, think about why you're doing it. All right. Think about how you can use this moment at the table to push your agenda forward. So rather than being focused on GM moves, you should be focused on your agenda, and you should be focused on your players, and you should be focused on their and your principles, right? And asking yourself, what does this move do? There's an old screenwriting thing which says, right, like no scene is worth a movie, no line of dialogue is worth a scene. A good editor, you are with your players a very limited amount of time. And you should be cutting through the bullshit as much as you can. And you should make every minute count. Now, when I was a younger lad, my friends and I would play D&D on like Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, like almost every week. And it would be like 7-hour sessions. And so we were playing like 21 hours a week. And I could afford to have a session or even an entire week's worth of sessions, 20 hours worth of sessions, be literally almost nothing. Now, 20 hours worth of sessions might honestly take me 4 to 5 months to to get through. I mean, these days it feels like it. So this is about thinking through the lens. If what we were talking about before about spotlight management was really about thinking about as a good director or a good cinematographer, GM moves and framing are about being a good editor. So what does it mean to make a GM move? It means you need to think about what does this point does this serve in the ongoing scene and wider story, and how soft and how hard should I make the move? Don't worry about the specific moves, like separate them or reveal danger or show them the cost. You can, they're on your GM screen, or you can write them out. You can learn to sort of, think about them in that context. But I think you should really more focus on doing soft and hard. Is this a move that is going to really stick it to the players and put them in a incredibly tough spot, or to immediately show them the consequences of their actions? They already jumped off the cliff, and now I'm going to show them what happens. You take damage. Or is this a move in which I want to show the players how the world reacts and maybe set up a potentially dangerous situation, but not immediately follow through with that and give the players a chance to respond? This soft versus hard move paradigm is the most important thing that you could do, okay? Because as a result of that, when the players do something and you respond with a hard move, the players will begin to realize by association that doing that action has consequences, and they may then reconsider that action. They may do something different. They may be more cautious. They may be more careful. If you respond with a soft move, then the players will likely not feel as immediately punished by their action, and instead will feel like the game is still in their control. So the difference between this is me saying the hard move is the goblins surround you and begin stabbing you, and I'm making attack rolls, right? Let's say they're minions, right? I activate a group of minions, the goblins move in, they surround you, and they begin stabbing you, and I'm making attack rolls. That's a hard move because the die is cast, the players are going to take damage if I roll high enough. A soft move would be me telling Smendon, a group of goblins is rushing towards you, beginning to move left and right to surround you. Now, did I just activate the goblins? No. Did I spotlight the goblins? No. I'm fictionally describing that they are moving around you. And now I go to Smendon, what do you do? Now, in both of those situations, the goblins are racing forward and they're going to try to attack you. But the difference between the hard move and the soft move is that in the soft move, I am giving Smendon, or maybe I'm giving a guardian in the party or something, a chance to do something about it before that badness comes through. And once the badness comes through, right, the die is cast. Additionally, this is sort of a tangent, but in Powered by the Apocalypse games, when a GM makes a hard move, it's really hard. It's just like, oh, you didn't do that thing? The orc hits you, does damage, you take the damage. There's no attack roll. The GM doesn't make an attack roll in, Dungeon World, for example. If the GM says you're taking damage, you're just taking damage. But in Daggerheart, we have things like the monsters making an attack roll, or an adversary making an attack roll, or the players making a reaction roll. So actually, you can be really hard because the players are still going to have a good chance of avoiding that, but the attack could miss. If I said the goblins surround you and they all stab you for 6 damage, that might be like the hard move from a Dungeon World game, and you just take the 6 damage. There's no recourse. I'm making the hard move. Whereas I could describe that and do that in Daggerheart and roll low on my D20 and end up doing, they miss. You were awesome and you parry all their attacks and you look like a badass. And so you can actually be kind of hard. You could be harder than you might even be in a PBTA game because there's this extra layer of protection. So in that respect, activating an adversary and getting them to do attacking is kind of a medium move. It's not really hard. It's kind of soft, but it's kind of between because they can miss. So if those are moves, the other thing to do as a GM and when you're thinking about as a sort of an editor is framing, right? Do not feel like you need to show every aspect of every scene. if the players are entering, if the players are going to go negotiate with the Baron for the release of their captive, of their companions, you don't literally have to show the players talking to every single guard along the way. You don't have to describe the entire castle. You can just, boom, cut right to the Baron's audience chamber. In fact, you could even cut in media res. And I can say, the Baron, suddenly we're just there and the Baron says, now, I've granted you an audience. What do you want? If you're here for your companions, they are writ to die. And then now I can say, and then I told the players, and what do you do? And now we're in that scene and we've cut through all that. So hard framing puts the players in the spot. You're cutting out, you're cutting out the FBT. You're cutting out to sort of cut to the action, cut to the chase. Rayo Man says, eliminate the shoe leather, like in movies and TV shows. And I agree with that, Rayo Man. Again, maybe you all have a lot more time to play than I do, in which case, awesome. And you can really, explore the space. I don't have that kind of time. So for me, it's really important as a GM is to think about, does this scene need to happen? Can we cut through it? Can we cut to the part that matters? Can we get to the part that matters? It's the same thing true with a combat. Because we're not here to sort of figure out if the PC's HP are going to deplete over the period of time before they earn enough experience points from gathering treasure from the dungeon so that they can level up. It's, if the combat's not interesting anymore, then we can just say it's over and we can move to the next thing, And I think that's an important skill to sort of manage. So again, you want to think about this in terms of story beats. You want to think about this in terms of advancing the plot. Now, again, what is the plot? It's not pre-written. We're sort of figuring out as we go along. And I think this becomes more important if you are on a limited time frame. I know that there are people out there who just want to, talk about the weather in character. And I have complete respect for you. But if you're on a limited time crunch, I would learn to sort of, as a GM, take more control of your story and take more control of the camera and take more control of the editing room. So when you think about the GM moves, don't get caught up on the nomenclature. When in doubt, pick a couple that you like, that you feel like comfortable with. Maybe, separating them, showing them danger, showing them signs of approaching danger, and make those your defaults. And when in doubt, like, again, if there's 12 or 14 of them, maybe you get around to using them. But try to learn 3 of them and maybe only use 3 or 4 of them for the first handful of sessions that you play, right? And figure that out and get comfortable calling for those moves and using those moves and using that idea of escalating. The reason why those GM moves are written in the book is because those moves tend to be very good at promoting your agenda, at pushing the characters towards adventure, at putting them into excitement, pushing them towards danger, fantasy, adventure, excitement, all that jazz, right? But when you're doing that, don't just say your move, right? Make it part of the fiction. Describe it. I mean, if you want to, even as you're sort of teaching your players, I suppose, if you really want to do this. In fact, this is one of the things I want to do in my actual play is, you can make a move and describe it in the fiction, right? As I describe that a squadron of orc reinforcements crosses the burning bridge to join the fray. And I tell them I'm showing signs of an approaching danger. I can tell my players that, to help everybody get more comfortable with what's going on, but you don't really need to. Ultimately, I would think, is that your goal is to get players to sort of think about the game in the terms of the narrative and to think about what's going on in the fiction and to ultimately sort of root themselves in that perspective. Now, you can absolutely take a step back and say in a moment, if you're really caught up for it, hey, players, what would be cool here? And now some players are not going to be comfortable with this. But one of the things that we can start to do is figure out ways to make our players feel like they have more of a say in the ongoing narrative. And while it is something that I don't do as much because I'm pretty comfortable making GM moves, I will sometimes say, hey, the orc is going to, the orc pushes their attack on you. I don't know, something bad happens to you. What is it? And the player might go, I don't know, maybe my weapon breaks. And I go, yeah, that's cool. We'll go with that. Your weapon breaks. And you're like, why would a player ever want their weapon to break? If you're, this goes back to the previous step, which you can go watch, in a prior thing, which is it's not about winning or losing. It's about creating a cool moment, whether your player character is affected by it or not. So we could do a whole video on GM moves and framing. This is sort of just a high level concept of it. We've done an entire set of games long before Daggerheart was even produced on this channel. We did a thing called Hard Moves. I think we did a stream called Hard Moves, a stream called Soft Moves. You can go talk and go look at them there. But there's a lot of stuff here, and it's worth checking out.